Hello, man. Hello, Mgtows. Hello, man. Hope everything's cool today. Hey, it's Friday. It's Friday. Let me see about my sound. Hello, man. Hello, Mgtows. Hello, man. It's okay. Hope it's okay. Everything's okay. Hello, Ken. Hello, DEK. I'll call you DTK and 24. DTK 24 Gaming. And hello, Ken. Hello, everybody that's going to show up today. Today, we're going to talk about a form of, I look at it as a form of gaslighting. Mgtows get gaslighted like on a daily basis, and I'll bring a quick, so we have a reference to what I'm talking about. I'm going to do a quick screenshot here for y'all, and maybe we'll listen to this guy for about 2 minutes, and I think that's about all we can get away with on this, and we're going to share, and there is infinity screen. So I hope you're seeing it. Let me see if you're seeing it. Yeah, you're seeing this guy right here. This is another one of those life coaches that come around. We get these on a daily basis, and I want to just take about 2-minute clip to what he's saying to Mgtow and what he's calling us and what he's saying about us, and then we'll go over about what he's talking about. And he's obviously a moron, and from the looks of him, he's Mr. Know-It-All and everything. And we'll just do a quick clip here.
Men going their own way, guys. So look, quickly, what's the philosophy between red pill and men going their own way? Okay, I know that they're different, and I know that no matter what definition I give, I'm going to get attacked, but that's okay. I'll do my best. Essentially, they both have the mindset that the world is tilted against men. There's a conspiracy of sorts against men, and men are always going to get at the raw end of the stick. So the difference between the red pill guys and the Mgtow guys, the red pill guys say, right, there's a conspiracy against men. There's a game being played here. We're going to learn to play the game better than women so that we get the advantage, not women.
Not really.
The men going their own way guys say, F the system. I'm not even going to, I'm just going to, the hell with women. I'm not going to, women don't deserve my attention. I'm better than that. I'm just going to do my own thing. That way I'm not even going to be a part of the game. And that's the mindset that's going on there. And of course, who do you think this kind of a philosophy acts as a beacon to? Men around the world who have been damaged or hurt by women, or who have been ignored and or teased by women.
Of course, 70% of the men that experience divorce and everything, of course, yes, that's who we're gonna. But
as a place of refuge where they feel like their problems can be understood and listened to. So it acts as a beacon, not just for men who have been hurt by feminism or been hurt by the modern world and who have dealt with it like adults and have processed and now want to make the world a better place. Hats off to you, men. It's also a beacon to the majority of guys who haven't. They've dealt with the situation like children. They haven't processed it.
Like children.
They're angry. They've got a chip on their shoulder. They've got an axe to grind, and they want to take it out on the world. They want to take it out on women. And that's the majority. That's the majority of the red pill guys and the men going their own way guys.
That's the majority of us.
And if if I think about the feminists that I interact with, obviously I get a lot of comments on my YouTube channels, and the red pill Mgtow guys that interact with me on my channels, I cop way more abuse from red pill Mgtow guys who are really emotionally unstable than I do from emotionally unstable feminists. In fact, I feel more threatened by red pill Mgtow guys than I do by feminists. And that's saying something, because I'm a big men's rights advocate. I'm big into men's rights, and so I should be
huge. I'm huge in men's rights. Let's take that down and end it right there. We're gonna go back to the page. We're gonna stop screen sharing right now, and we're gonna talk about this. Hello, Eddie. Haven't seen you for a while. It's good to see you, my brother. We're gonna start talking about this for a little bit. This is tantamount to gaslighting. We get this every single day. It's like they're trying to convert us from Mgtows back into what they are, simps. They're simps. And how is he going to do this? Does this guy know anything about what he's talking about? We see this with the coach Eli's, the life coaches, all these coaches, and they center around these words that they learn in some book. some Larson's book for life coaching and everything. Now let's talk about a life coach for a second. You walk into a pub or a bar, you sit down next to a guy, and you start talking about, what do you do, Joe? Oh, well, I work in a steel mill. No. You work in a steel mill. What do you do? And well, I'm an electrician in a steel mill. And okay, that tells me a little bit about myself. And then I say, what do you do? And he goes, I'm a life coach. I'm a life coach. And I go, what? No, but what do you do? What's do you do psychology? Do you do something underneath? And that's what these guys are. They're surface value life coaches that see Mgtow as a this guy angers me. Yes, he does. Go back and watch that. That guy, I can't remember that guy's name, and it's not important that you remember. You probably see it up there this guy angers me because he goes, I'm a big men's rights activist. Now let's fill you in before. He was talking about feminism, how feminism doesn't bother him, how feminism, all the feminists come around and they process their negativity in better ways. And this rage that we feel is this rage that he comes around. And this is what it is. You go around somewhere and let's imagine you walk into an Irish bar. And this is what he's doing. He's walking into an Irish bar and he's going, hey, all you Irish people, I can show you how to be, I can show you how not to be Irish, and showing you how not to be Irish would be being just like me. And it's a logical fallacy is what he's doing. He's doing the logical fallacy of if you were like me. Now that doesn't really bother me because I see this hundreds of times. I get gaslighted hundreds of times by these people weekly. We see these things every single day. There's this life coach coming around, but do they really know what processing is? Do they really know how the human brain works? Or did they read it out of some PC page on the local scandal rag? And I think that's what there's two kinds of people. There's people that know about this, and they know about how the brain works, and they know about how things happen. What we're doing when we're talking about we're talking about processing things. We're talking about processing. We're talking about error correlation. We're talking about tasks. We're talking about a lot of things. We're talking about predictive error processing. What we're saying when we came in is we as Mgtows are doing predictive error processing. And I've always wanted to talk about this because it just seems that these people are just so dense and so on the surface value of low IQ that they have never ever really studied what they're talking about. As humans, we are constantly interacting with our atmosphere, with our environment, and there's social context, the social cues. There's verbal speech. There's 90% of the verbal context that you're going to get your communication with is hands and language and body language, and the brain processes these things. However, the actions that are inadequate to processing, like negative actions, are errors. We're looking at those in errors. It's Joe's, ands, ors, and nots, and systems. It was an error. When you have this negative thing that you cannot process, what you're saying is, yes, there was an error there. And in detecting and evaluating these things in the human brain it causes you to modify your behavior accordingly. Okay, and every scientist will tell you this, every brain neurosurgeon, every psychologist that's actually worth his weight in salt will tell you this. You're correcting errors and you're modifying your behavior accordingly and rationally, such as error processing takes place in a concept perception of what I talk about in this action loop of being a male. What I do is I move from segments to segments and segments of my life, and I put a task in and I complete that task, or I failure at that task. The failure is important. The failure is the important part, because it's like Edison says. He says, I didn't just make a light bulb. I learned from 1,000 failures on trying to make a light bulb, and then I learned from how to make a light bulb. And it's how we go through life. We detect these, our perception action loop, and we have bad experiences, which is a part of perception action loop, and you learn from that, and you learn to grow from that. And what Mgtows are saying is, I've noticed things within this world that are harmful to me, and I have to avoid in my perception action loop that I have to go on. I'm not going to repeat, because we all know the reason. Insanity is repeating the same things over and over again and expecting different results. So I did this process, and what he's saying, this guy said, is I'm getting people in here that are wounded. Now we're looking at men, and we're looking at our audience, and we're looking at who we're talking to, and we say, okay, this guy realizes that he ran into a brick wall. He was wounded. He's got this process. There was an error in the processing of what he was told. There's an error in there. In my the way I think, with the ands, ors, or nots, I came to a false. I worked out this system, and I came to a false. We do models, inverse models in our heads of action, and they're in conjunction with the current state of what we are thinking in our environment. But it's all based on modifying behavior accordingly. Now, Mgtows take a very rational look at, a very predictive look at modifying their behaviors accordingly, such as error processing and error codes and perception loops. So I look at this, and I say this with a lot of men. And the analogy I'll give for this, I don't want to go into the technical terms of all this stuff. We can go into a Wolpert 95. We can go into Kawato, one of my favorite people, Kawato. He does the research on children, autistic children, how they don't understand sarcasm or humor, and he gives this predictive model of sarcasm and humor and everything. We got an expected sensory. There's expected sensory consequences that come into this thing. Expected. Now think about this. You're looking at these expected behaviors as a male, as a rational male. You've completed this process. You're looking at what's going to happen in the future, because you have this action perception loop going on. You're doing these activities. A predictive program in your brain says, this is going to get me here. This is going to get me here. We have life experience. Now as humans, we start looking at pragmatism. We start looking at what I talked about yesterday and the day before, and we start analyzing all this electro garbage in your head, and you say, if I do this, the sensory data will feed back that this is wrong, and it will run to a wrong every single time. And that's what we're talking about in the brain and in the human psyche when we perfect ambulance when the brain, it's brain negativity and predictive error processing, and how to manage these things in our life. When we get to these points in our lives, Mgtows do this very well, because we're very intelligent people. We've taken in this portion of and we've experienced in a pragmatic situation. We've experienced what's going to go on in this portion of our life. We take a summary of our actions. We do that introspection. I take a summary. Did I go wrong? Where was the error? Was the error my fault? And then most of the time we realize that when the error happened, it wasn't my fault. And that's the biggest thing that makes me crazy in my brain. I often say I did everything right. I went to high school. I joined the Army early. I did my service. I started taking classes when I got out. I fulfilled my obligation to get my high school education. I listened to the preacher. I listened to my fathers. I listened to my mentors. I I got married. I picked a woman that I thought would increase my diversity in this world and send out these little arrows, these children I send out into the world. I got a job. Out of 18 years of marriage, I missed a total of 2 days of work. 2 days of work. I was steady. I put in more time than I did everything. And then one day she says, I'm unhappy. I have a boyfriend. Process that. I'm going to divorce you. I'm going to make you into a slave. Process that. And then I look at these negative loops, and I look at everything, and I look at myself, and I come to a reasonable position on that with all this time I've had. In Mgtow, you're going to get a reasonable position on that. She was absolutely right. And in a reasonable position it was none of my business what another human being does from the inception. From the inception, that means all that 18 years, I was deluding myself in a blue pill manner, the same as this guy is deluding himself. It was never none of my business what she does with her body. And it was never her business what I do with my body, my time, my money. So I've processed this thing. I've took those errors that was made. I've looked at these things. I've looked at the whole total. I build a graph in my head. We all do this. Men do this. This is the downfalls. This is the risk. This is the upfalls. We'll call that the juice against the squeeze. It'll make it easy for people to understand where Mgtows are coming. And I've come to an analogy in my life. I use a lot of analogies. Sorry, I didn't come to an analogy. I've come to this position in my life where I realize that it's just not worth it. All that loss, and it's monetary loss, it's emotional loss, it's loss of time, is just not worth that split V. Is just not worth that split V. So we process these things very good in Mgtow, and don't ever let some snarky ass little skinny ass man like that sway you with ambiguous wording like processing. Because we all know what that is, and we all know what Mgtow is. We know it's about working our way through that rage when this thing that happens, and things and stuff, we'll call it about Descartism and everything, he's going to call them these things happen. Now, you can't put your finger on it, and I know it's a lot of it. What it came to is your relationship ran to a false. Everything you were told and all the sensory input that you're going to get in your brain of that, the mentors, the fathers, the guys like that I showed, the guys like that consistently lie to you, and they give these, you take in this information and you try to run it to a truth, so it runs to that picket fence with her standing there with pies and bakery, like I always say, and this is going to work out the rest of my life, and I'm going to die happy in a bed. And then you realize that error coding that happened was a false. And I'll always say you run ands, ors, and nots in your life, and it will be the truest form. It'll be the electrical management in your brain. The truest form of a human being is to run those ands, ors, and nots at a moment's notice, and you run everything to a true or a false. That was a little bug. I don't know where that came from in the middle of winter when it's cold. That's weird. But you run these things through your head, and you do the processing, and then Mgtow helps you process through these things where you realize that all these things were a lie. And with all that thing, now this jackass is total absurdity. He comes in, he says, I'm a big fan of Mgtow, and I'm a big fan of men's rights, and I'm a big fan, and I'm the real deal. I'm that Mgtow, I'm that guy that's for men's rights, but you guys are all wrong. That's total absurdity. That's total absurdity. And when you have a man, when we have guys coming at us weekly, almost daily, it becomes a sort of gaslighting. There's this Mgtow conversion therapy that goes on, and that hence the title of this video. There's this Mgtow conversion therapy that goes on. That's pseudoscientific, and I'll read if you haven't read the low bar, I'll read it for you. It's a pseudoscientific practice of trying to change the Mgtow's individual hesitancy or refusal due to this process that he went through that permits him to avoid risky behavior. And I'm ad-libbing it because I don't have it in front of me. They'll try to tell you that pair bonding in relationships from predatory individuals is okay, and that's what happens in the world using psychological or spiritual intervention. Now he's using a sort of psychological, half-baked psychological. Now we see the other half when you go down those Mgtow videos for the day and you start picking them. You're going to see the spiritual guys coming in. You're going to see these psychological guys. You're going to see these keki like him. These keki sort of, I don't even know, life coaching gurus that said they're going to, but what he wants you to do is buy into his blue pill idea of the world. And he's going to use it. He's going to do things like, oh, you guys are just losers and TFLs, and the shame and a combination of all those aforementioned things, the spiritual intervention and the barbaric practices, which we get around here daily. You can look at it, and I can show you it on my analytics of exclusion from the rest of the society. They exclude us, and we're pretty much saying it doesn't bother us a lot, but because we're saying, well, we're walking away from you morons. We're walking away from you idiots. And all this comes down to a sort of social pressure that comes down upon Mgtow. We feel it all the time. We end up talking about things like this instead of talking about the important things in life, like I was going about the negative brain. When you rather, if this guy was truly an intellectual, if this guy was, wouldn't you think he would go to how the brain interacts with these negative things that happen and explain to you about processing, about how to process these things, how to process all this negative information that was taken in that was negative. They were all falses. From the day you started, someone was lying to you, and it was a false. Do this, get married. There's going to be this rainbow and all this stuff. 72 to 86% of males, and that's a pretty big that's a pretty big charted indicator, that 72 to 80%. And what this guy is really talking about is 72 to 82%, 86% of males are going to experience this negative information that they need to process in their head, and they need to correlate this stuff and do some effective monitoring of their selves. And there's a lot of things that happen in here. With that, don't you think he would talk about that? Don't you think he would talk about how to move through this in an adequate way that's productive for yourself, and detecting these things and what it's about? When you have okay, let's talk about this. You go in caveman terms, you go into the woods, and 6 out of 10 times you walk into the woods from the south side of the woods, and there's a lion or a saber-toothed tiger there. And man, you have to process this. That's a negative thing. I didn't get the hunt on. I didn't do this. There's an action loop of information that's taken care of, and complex perception. We do 1.2 million syllogisms in our head, and I'm trying to process this. How many times would it take you walking southward or southwestern into that woods to realize that I should walk north? And that's what Mgtows are doing. We process this stuff. There's a perception action thing that we process this stuff, and it's not on like a computer program, and it's not on like little sensors. If this works out consistently wrong in your life, and most of us have gone through many relationships, and many, and most of them are turned on, and then you add on and you pile on the haystack of social justice, dating coaches lying to you, male simp ass white knight male men lying to you consistently about the results that they're telling you, you do this and you're going to have positive results, and those positive results never ever seem to work out. You have to process this stuff reasonably, and being rational MGTOWs, we simply say, no, I'm going to separate myself. I'm going to adapt. And that's what we're doing. We're processing. We're adapting. We're capable of detecting and evaluating the situations and the atmospheres and the environment that we live in. And we made a rational decision to process this stuff and come to a rational decision on that. So things start running to what? They start running to a true in your life. And then we see marvelous results. We see marvelous results of men becoming happier, men becoming healthier, men getting their educations, men going to college, men doing things they wouldn't generally do in this world. Like they climb a mountain, and it's all through this loop, this constant loop in the nervous system, the CNS and alert nervous system that plays on in our brains. That's the way men are. And then when we find something that works, we continually mimic the input-output relationship that controlled that situation. We continually mimic it. When you come to Mgtow, you've processed these things. You've looked at me. You want a forward model on these things. That's what I always look at, a forward model. I want a forward model on how to manage risk in my life. And I put all these things together, and I've come to a rational decision that if I never get married, I'll never get a divorce. If I never do this with women, if I don't push those boundaries too far with women, that I'll never have unwanted children. And that simply runs to a true in our lives. But these people, man, they are so absurd. They are so uninformed, so low intelligence, that they don't seem to get that. And then they come with this absurdity. I'm a big Mgtow advocate. And all he's saying, I'm a big Mgtow and MRA advocate. I advocate for boys. He probably doesn't even know what the word advocate means. I advocate for men and boys, but I'm going to help you process. And he didn't look into the actual word. It's just a groovy little word that he throws into it to make his ambiguous sales pitch seem correct. And man, the total absurdity on top of that when he says, but you guys are wrong about being right. And that's what he's saying. You guys are wrong about being right. You guys can't be running these things to truths. And that's what he's saying. Total garbage, total absurdity. Totally absurd. Now, if I had 15 minutes, if I wanted to waste 15 minutes on a day to run this guy's, to run what he's really saying through some logic gates and some logistical logic gates, I'll tell you what, I could probably put him up there, and I'm going to do this someday. I'm going to spend about a half a day. Not that I like to spend that kind of time on these douchebags. I'm going to run his whole total program through a logic gate. I have a logic gate logistical program that I can do and show you how most of what he says will run to a false. Now, I do this in my brain because that's how I'm programmed. And it just, when I look at these guys, my head kind of cocks like, what is he saying that is so absurd? In one sentence, you've contradicted yourself over and over and over again. And in that video that he made, he contradicted himself. He came off as absurd. It was ridiculous. He comes off as low IQ. And what he's really saying is, these feminists are pretty good because they got a split V, and we got to forgive them and lean in and keep doing that, because that would make my existence on this world better if you guys wouldn't complain about that. And that's what he's really saying. Guys, don't complain about that, because I need to get some of that. Even though there's a certain amount of risk involved with that. Oh, let me see what you guys have to say up here. Let me click on this. But Trav, if you don't want to if you don't wife up a woman, you will spend your time. Who will spend your time and money? Yeah, I'm sure she will spend my time and money for me. I'd rather spend it on me. Some pizza and some beer and hang around with the guys, maybe go out to the pub, go to a nice restaurant, and life after woman law. He often says, why buy 2 hamburgers when you only need 1? These life coaches are absurd. But there's a bigger issue here. There's a bigger issue, and we all know, we all feel these things. Sometimes I like to dissect these things and explain them in a more scientific way and everything. And that goes, it's a flyby on most people. And I know I'm a flyby on most people from my viewer count, I can tell. But but the bigger issue here of this thing is, man, there's this constant sort of conversion therapy that goes on, and we get it, the pressures from all sides, all different sides. We get it from the life coaches, we get it from the religionistic people, and Jesus is coming. That's what they're saying. Jesus, when you look at conversion therapy, we generally look at Chris has a new program for $20. Thank you. I'll check that out. we look at conversion therapy like, okay, this guy had a son that's not sexually what he wants him to be. He's not dating the girls, and that's what they're saying. The Mgtows, they're not doing these things, so he's going to send him off to Jesus camp. And Jesus camp is gonna cure him, and then he's gonna like girls, and that's conversion therapy. It would take the ideology of that, and then and think about how awful it is, and think about how awful these people, how awful these people have to be to even suggest what he's suggesting to us. That's a horrible person. And this guy's sitting there smiling with his wife beater on and his skinny little arms, which I looked at him, and the first thing I seen, I was like, that guy's got about 12-inch arms. He's a life coach. Imagine that picture of walking up to this guy in a bar, and he just asked you what you do, what skills you have. And I says, well, I'm an electromechanic, I'm an EMT, I work in a steel mill, and I'm an electrician in a steel mill, and that's what I do. That's the thing I do in life. I program processors for a living. And he says, I'm a life coach. Don't you think you would take your big fist? You take your big fist and you just ram it right down his throat at that point. It's like coming up to someone and going, yeah, you walk up to, like, you walk into the same bar, and you go, what do you do? And he goes, I'm a doctor. I fix people. I save lives every day. I work on neurosurgery and everything. And the guy goes, well, that's okay, but I'm a DJ. I spin groovy tunes and mixtapes for my friends, and I'm trying to get this off. And he hands you his mixtape record, and that's what these guys see. That's what these guys remind me of, these life coaches. He's like, here's my mixtape. And he's trying to sell you his mixtape. And that's the analogy I like to live for the coach Eli's and the guy that I showed earlier in here. They're trying to sell you their mixtape because that somehow makes your life better. What a bunch of jackasses. Oh, man. Life just bothered me. Yeah, DJ Smush Puss, he's going to sell you his mixtape, and that's going to make you have all kinds of magical feels. It's like, boom, boom, boom. It's like, son of a bitch. And then you look at your life. Most of us guys we're okay guys. We're normal guys. We do normal jobs. We have skills. We go to these things. And when you got some guy that, I'm a life coach, you want to buy my mixtape? And that's all it is some mumbo jumbo garbage that he's trying to feed you. And your success depends on your thirst. And so when he comes around and you got these guys like the TFLs or the incels, and that's the marketing, that's the kind of marketing. I always say that most of these guys that come around, they're the enthusiastic salesmen. And be able to spot the enthusiastic salesmen and this stuff, and most of them have no idea. I would like to have a talk with this guy about neurosensory processing. And he's like, he said at one point, nobody wants to debate me. And I was like, I'll debate you, but we're going to have to keep this, because you know what it is. You guys remember my cast with Legend. And Legend was doing the same thing. He was talking about a bunch of things, and it just made me so crazy at a certain point. It's like, you're talking about absolutely freaking nothing. And I started yelling at him. You're just such an idiot. It just makes me crazy. Because you gave no information, zero information. You haven't even given, most of these guys, they haven't even given a reference to the information. I mean, minuscule IQs, minuscule. It just makes me crazy when I have to talk to one of these guys. They'll complete their idea of a debate is, how snarky can I be? How many times can I how many times can I get off absurdity with these people? That would be his idea of a debate. He's like, I won. I was the snarkiest. No, that doesn't work here. And it doesn't work in Mgtow, because we're rational human beings that have already processed all the information. All the information you need has already been processed. That's the culmination of your life experience in the dating realm. And if all those things ran to negatives and lies, you have to process that information, and you have to process those emotions. And that's it. And you do that in a very meticulous way as a human being. He's so discarding the idea that we're all intelligent human beings and we do 1.2 million syllogisms in our head in a given day. And he so discards, and he's so narcissistic. He's so unaware of everything else in this world that he would say, and the end result is, if you act just like me, you'll get good results. No, you won't. You know what you're going to get? You're going to get those same results you had from all that information that you failed to process the first time. All that negative, all those micro information, you can break it down to this ran to a true, to a true, to a false, and it eventually ran to a false because there was one true there. And this is what happens. There's an inkling of truth in a lot of things these people say. They project that inkling of truth, and then you start with the truth and you go, okay, I'm willing to listen to this process, and then it's true to false, to true to false, to true to false, which still runs to a false. The idea of that could never work in any kind of scientific situation. So why would you run that sort of stuff in your brain? And why would you let guys like that tell you that you can run that sort of stuff in your life and it's going to work out? Jesus Christ, that makes my head explode when I listen to these guys. Let me see what you got. Like political speeches. Yeah. Exactly, Trev. Hello, Riff. Hello, Riff Mangoes. Heidi, Luke. Hetty's in today, and it's always nice to see Hetty. Where you been, Hetty? You're probably having a horrible winter there, aren't you? We're going to get a snowstorm here tonight, so I wanted to come on early because the snow is going to probably start tugging on the lines. In a little while, the ice, it's raining, and it's right at that point where it's going to change, and we're going to get a snowstorm. So it's going to be a heavy weight on the lines around here. So I do expect to lose my my cable at a certain point during the night, so I wanted to come on a little early and say hello to everybody. On a Friday night, I'm going to grab a few beers, probably try to watch a few movies tonight and everything. I watched a horror. I watched this. It was really cool at first, and they had this really great idea. And then I tried to watch it. And I was really excited. It was what was it called? It was Roswell. There's this new show coming out, and there's these young kids, and there's this young guy. He's an alien and everything, and I got up to about 45 minutes in the first episode last night, and then a guy kissed another guy. It was like, oh Christ. And then it was all about emotions, and then I can project to how this thing's going to work out from it's like, this is going to be a roller coaster ride of two people in love having all kinds of emotions all over the place. and that will be the series. And so I turned it off, and I was like, oh, that had so much potential at the beginning. You have these great storylines and everything, but man, you got to watch out. I feel like I got Kirk Cameroned. You guys ever get Kirk Cameroned? That's what I call it. I call it Kirk Cameron. Do you remember how Kirk Cameron was an actor, and he was a pretty good actor from Something of Life. He was a child show that I grew up with and everything. And then Kirk Cameron turned into a big religious addict. And then so he was making movies, and he was directing movies, and they had really great visual cues on the front of like bombs going off. And then the movie was like, and then you start watching the movie, and they'd be normal for about like 10 minutes. And then it was all of a sudden right into the Christian movie stuff. And then you realize, oh man, he just Kirk Cameroned me. And it's like, son of a bitch owes me $3.99 now. And it's like, Kirk got me like twice in my life. Tribulation Force and something else. It was like, I thought that was going to be an action adventure movie, because the picture on the front was like, it was sort of like what do they call that when the girls do the snapshots of them 20 years before? And I can't remember what it was called, but yeah, he so got me, Kirk Cameron. That's what I felt like when I watched this show last night. It's like, oh, the son of a bitch, Kirk Cameron to me. It's like, goddamn, I hate that. It's like I spent like 40 minutes of my life to be disappointed. Bumblebee, Garchomp. I started watching Bumblebee, the new Bumblebee. That was like so disappointing. Love at the end, it was like love triumphs for all. It's like she's having some emotional conflicts with her environment, and this robot fixes it for her, and it's like, oh man. And at the end, there was that when the robot was looking in deeply into her eyes, and she was like, and then he found the strength to come back in that magic, that electric that happened, and that metaphysical. It's like he's gonna come back out of the water, and he jumps up, and he's like, "Urgh!" And that's the beast that's stuff. It's like, oh man, that's such a lie. Oh no, that's not going to work that way. There's nothing that goes back and forth between so there's horrible shows. But next week, after this weekend, if the snowstorm doesn't inhibit it, and I can get a $5 matinee, I'm going to go watch Glass at the new Unbreakable Glass at the theater, and that comes out this weekend. And so I'm hoping they don't gyno it up too much. It doesn't look like so far with the it doesn't look so far that they have. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4 there's the protagonist, and that's Glass, and then there's the minor protagonist, that's the guy from Unbreakable, and then they have the villain, and then, well, villain is the Glass. He's a sympathetic protagonist. He's a sympathetic villain. Yeah, he's more of the sympathetic villain, and then the real villain is so it looks like a male-oriented movie. But hey, I might be wrong about that, and but I'll see this weekend or next. I think I'm going to go Tuesday for a matinee. I haven't been to a matinee for a while. We'll get Chinese and then go to the matinee, and And so that's my experience with movie watching, but that's not here nor there with what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's just got done prepping for incoming weather. Yeah, I noticed that we went out earlier to do our prepping, and I was like, what am I going to need to make it through 4 days of here? So I got 5 packs of smokes, of course, and and I got like I made this. I planned on making this big bowl of pasta salad, or anti-pasta salad, whatever you call it, for like 5 days. And I bought chicken, and I got some rice, and then I made sure that my generator is going to start if I need it, so I don't freeze to death. And I don't think it's going to get that cold. I don't think it's possible to freeze to death with this kind of weather, but it'll be uncomfortable, and I'll make sure. But we're going to have one of those. I'm sure one of the lines are going to go down, because the electric companies have so failed Americans, haven't they? We can look at the electric company there in California, the PGE, I think it is. I'm not sure if that's right. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. And we can see how they mismanaged the electric grid in California so badly that the government is going to have to step in. And then they caused a wildfire that killed a bunch of people and burnt down affluent neighborhoods. And it wasn't that it killed a bunch of people and burnt a little bit of woods. The real argument is that it crept into affluent neighborhoods, and then that's when it's like, boom, you can kill regular people, and you can electrocute them, and you can start a forest fire, and that's not so bad in America. If you're a big company, everybody goes, well, they're a big company. But you burn down an affluent neighborhood, oh yeah, of Hollywood actors, you're gonna feel the heat on that one. And I think that's the milk apple in there. It's so funny. Yeah, it doesn't matter the rest of the people, but they mismanaged the electric grid. We had a blackout a few years ago where the electric grid went down, and it was right around here. It went from New York to Ohio, up to Pennsylvania, up to Chicago, and the whole electric grid was down because a little ways away from here, down in Ravenna, one of the towers were neglected for so long, then they couldn't figure out how the feedback was. It would hit the line, fell and hit the pole, and then feedback was coming, and it took down the whole electric grid. And it's like, yeah, I couldn't figure that one out, you bunch of dork, you bunch of asses, jackasses. But they renegotiated the substations now, so that doesn't happen. I was like, yeah, but you and then work feverishly on getting all those articles taken out of the press about how you should renegotiate all your substations before this happens. I was like, oh yeah, you guys did a good job. That was great. That was great. Like, press cleanup. But the thing today is, I just wanted to stop by, say hello, and share my opinion on. I don't like getting gaslighted as a Mgtow. It's one of the things that bothers me. While you're in here, guys, I got 8 downvotes before they even started. Give me an upvote if you can, like and share if you can, and I feel like I'm going through this process of conversion therapy on a daily basis, where the whole blue pill world's trying to convert me back to being an ignorant absurdist. They want me to stop thinking logically and stop thinking about and stop processing. What they're saying is they want me to stop processing all that negative information that I've learned pragmatically through the years, and stop talking about that and base all my interest and desires on hope. Which we all know is Simpson's paradox. And the Simpson's paradox is funny, and that's why I use it, because it's the idea of the rich are always happy because they're rich, and the poor are always the poor can have happiness if they look for hope. But it has more to do with that. It's the Berkeley study about feminism and Berkeley, and how the feminists were saying that we don't have enough courses for females. And after they did the study, they found out that there was 8 courses for females and 3 courses for males. And somehow, mathematically, that wasn't bad. That's Simpson's paradox. Somehow, mathematically, it still worked out in the favor for the snowstorm. Thanks, Hetty Lukey. For it's going to be a little bit. I don't know. I'm hoping that it's not too bad, the snowstorm, but I should have brought my snowblower out today and tried to make sure it started. It's been sitting for 4 years in the back, and I hate snow blowing. I don't drive, so there's no reason for me to actually shovel or plow my now I could do that for my friend that pulls up and my friends that pull up, and they always yell at me, why haven't you shoveled your damn driveway, Joe? And I says, I don't drive anymore. I take an Uber, and I can call an Uber, and I picked the Uber up on the street. Hopefully them would be plowed, and that's the way I run my life now. And yeah, so I'm hoping it's not going to be too bad. But man, do you guys ever get sick of the constant conversion therapy that we have to go through? And it's not that we want to do it. We want to sit and we want to sit around Mgtow and talk about those negative. And what we're doing is we're still processing these negative examples of how it doesn't work. And that's how the brain works. That's all about processing, which I explained earlier. You process the negative things that happen, and then you look at them and you decide where things went wrong and why you introduced this risk to your life. Why were you thinking that some girl was taking in some woman in your life and a pair bonding situation was going to save you, when it just led to more chaos? And we look at those situations and we make a rational decision because we're rational males. We are the Mgtow rational males. And we made a rational decision to not introduce all that garbage and all that risk to our lives. And even though they see this and they see that it's a rational decision that we made, they'll still go, but there's the split V. And you go, no, that's one of those traps. And if you want to really talk about the split V, it's a hole. It's the void of everything. You want to base your life on the void of everything? Go ahead, because that is just funny. Oh, man. So I hope you're all having a great Friday. I was drinking some coffee. I went out and I asked the girl, you got any Costa Rican? And she was looking at me, and I was like, oh, I got a sandwich. I think I got a wrap today out. It was a tuna, not a tuna wrap. It was a turkey wrap with bacon in it. Dougie got most of it. When I brought it home, he was just like, oh, man, thanks, Joe. You're the dude. You hunted today, and he brought home a bacon turkey wrap. And I gave it to Dougie, and he was like, dude, you're the tops. You're the beast. But Dougie's not been feeling good anymore. He stayed out in the weather for the last month or so. He's been staying out overnight, and it bothers me. I sit there, stare out the window in the middle of the night, worrying about him because he wants to stay out. But I forget that he's a snow dog. He's a husky sort of Samoyed breed. He can take it, but then he gets these ear infections, and he got the sniffles and an ear infection back again. I was like, you're staying in tonight, Doug. You're staying. Yeah, Doug, you're staying in. He doesn't agree. He doesn't agree. So I hope everybody's day's going on, and we're bracing for a snowstorm that may or may not happen, because how do we know it's going to happen? Because the National Weather Service has pretty much been handcuffed by our shutdown. Yeah, we see how that rolls down into the National Weather Service too. So I don't know if I'm getting good information. It might snow. It might have a terrible snowstorm, but it might just blow right by us or go above us. I don't think it'll go above us, because I was looking at the Gulf Stream, and it always goes from east to west here. Look at the stream. It's very predictable, the weather here. I can look at what's happening in Chicago and know that that's going to happen to me. And within like hours, or Milwaukee, I can look at what's happening to the west, and I know that's going to bring my because the Gulf Stream only works one way in America. It just goes across. And sometimes it goes like this. And we got that dip happening, and it dips down to about it's dipping down to a low upper Tennessee, and that's about normal. That's the normal dip in the Gulf Stream, and it's dipping down to upper Tennessee, and that's normal for this time of the year. It was slow this year, and that's when we get the cold weather, but it'll be interesting to see. And then what's going to be more interesting to see is how they if it's wrong and everybody's like, there was no snowstorm and there was blah, 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 blah. And this never happened. And we all prepared, because the stores were crazy today. There were people just buying shit off the shelves, getting prepared for this stuff, because we know we've been through these snowstorms before. So we're all logical. We make rational decisions. Now that in itself, you can look at processing of the brain. And you say people that live in northern states have the experience of knowing that being stuck inside your house for a few days sucks. And if you don't have cream, if you don't have coffee, if you don't have sugar, or if you don't have beer, especially beer, that, man, you should have did that beforehand. So you make the logical, rational decision in your life to prep for that. And that's the same thing Mgtows do. Mgtows make a good, rational, logical decision based on these negative things that they've. Don't let them shame. And then that's the thing. These guys will shame. These guys will shame Mgtows about negative things that happen, and negative things happen to about 99% of society. Imagine if you shamed everybody for the negative things that happen in their life and tragedy. It's like, aha, your uncle died. That sucks, but get over it. Why don't you do some processing? It's like you would come off as a total dork, wouldn't you? If you said that, oh man, sucks that your dad just died, but get over it, process that so we can go out, dude. That's like, if my buddy ever said that to me in these moments of tragedy or these moments of negative, and what we're talking about is negative EMM. It's negative EMM in your life. I'll just use because I'm not going to say the words. So you got this negative EMM coming in your processing center, which is right here. It's your nog. We'll just simplify that. And you take these and you learn from it. And that's what we're saying. Mgtows have learned that 90, and I would think it's up to 92% of the time, out of all the other relationships I think I've had in my life, and I've had a lot of them, and people yell at me about that and everything. I was quite the whore after I got a divorce, but yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, I think there was one relationship that ended on a mutual agreement that we just liked each other, but we weren't like, it's like kissing my sister or something. It's like, I don't like that. It's like, dude, I like you, but one relationship. So that's about 99%, you know, of one relation that actually didn't end with yelling, screaming, insulting, which you can carry back for months. We were just discontent, yelling, screaming, insulting each other, and realizing, slowly taking all this information of all these negative things that happen and realizing that maybe, just maybe, that men and women shouldn't live in the same houses as each other. You shouldn't cohabitate because it's horrible. It really is. It's horrible. Oh, North, we start prepping. Oh, North, yeah, we start prepping in the winter, in the summer. Do you prep? I tried to do that. I did that last month or the month before when we were still having mild temperatures. I buy my bulk rice, and then I buy bulk chicken, and I freeze it, and then I buy bulk the not frozen vegetables, the dried vegetables. So I buy dry. I really got some great recipes for dry mushrooms. I bought this 2-pound bucket of dry mushrooms. There's way a lot of mushrooms in there too, more than I can eat in a year. And dry onions, the dry vegetables, dry celery, dry carrots, dried all that stuff. I love it because you can take a handful of that stuff and you just rinse it off. Rinse all that salt off of it first. If you ever use dry vegetables, rinse the salt off it and let it soak. before you throw it in. And then I put some dry mushrooms in there, whatever I'm in the meat. And even if I don't make it to the store, I still have, you know, an abundance of things that will supplement me and Doug. Me and Doug. I always have to think about Doug, my boy Dougie. He's my son. That's what my friend calls him. How's your son doing? Because I said, Doug's doing okay. He's a little sick lately. He's enjoying the frigid temperatures of winter by laying on an icicle all day, and he doesn't understand that. He loves that. I don't know what's wrong with him, but we do our prepping earlier. But if you freeze your preps, how will you deal with the grid going down? I have a generator just in case. I'm one of these smart ass individuals that actually bought a generator just in case. Both my neighbors know I have a generator too. And it's like, they didn't buy a generator, but I know if it goes down for over a day or two, then I'm going to turn on my generator and recharge up the cooling. As long as you don't open your freezer, open your refrigerator, in most situations, you have about a day and a half before things start. And basically, it's cold out there anyway, so move your refrigerator up against the. If you're going to lose all your food, I would say take the food out in the frigid temperatures and put it outside rather than losing it inside, which just makes sense. But I have a generator, and a generator will start you. So, hey, Silent Sage. Hey, life lift. What is that? Lifting, lurking. Yeah, you lurk. Everybody's lurking. I love lurking. I just sit back and I lurk on most of the podcast and just, hey, I'm here. So as most of you know, I changed my name the other day to, but my copycat yesterday changed his name too, and I complained again to YouTube about that. My copycat copied my channel again, and he came on yesterday on Riskey's stream and started doing his copycat thing, because that's about the extent of his intelligence. So he's gonna keep with it. You got to figure this cat is autistic, because he's just so tenacious about his hate for me. It's like only someone that is really, really autistic could have that much hate, and if for so long. My buddy was telling me, how can you dislike me? I'm so personable. But he actually hates. I think what he hates is he hates that I represent Mgtow, and he hates Mgtow. And when he falls asleep at night, the representation of the evil that he's drawn up. And we talked about this, about drawing up the evil on things. It works the same way as Freud's breasts. It's like drawing up that perfect evil, where his representation of the perfect Mgtow evil is me. And I'm flattered. I am flattered, but he has found me again, and that's where the 8 downvotes probably come from already. So hit that upvote and get me back on track, so I have more upvotes than downvotes. And but I've never understood obsession, and we should do a video someday about obsession. And I think I did do a video once about how people get obsessed with other people. I've had situations in my life with people that would mimic. Yeah, and any of you guys ever had someone that mimics everything you do? And I see people that mimic me sometimes, and mimic the beard, mimic the monk. I'm the original monk. There is no other original monks. I have the Mgtow church. It's like, I'm the Mgtow church. I was the first. Don't try to steal that. But there's people that mimic me and mimic what I say. And there's people that do that, carry that to an unhealthy level. They mimic everything about me, and then they try to impersonate me, and then the impersonation becomes sort of creepy, and it's creepy, and it's like, ew, that's creepy, and then it's like it's unhealthy. And I wish they would take a counseling lesson with me, because I could help them work through that. I always say, anytime with these TFLs or these incels, or I'll give them free counseling lessons, and we'll just do some free counseling. They could talk to me, and I'll be their counselor and work them through their pain. And I see people that the people mimic you. Yeah. what I found in life is when I was a DNA counselor and I was working with those people, that a lot of the people that were coming around me had and I realized that they would start mimicking, and it's something that's I can't remember what it's called. It's a systematic disease that people will start mimicking you because they have nothing. The drugs or their brain patterns can't do anything else but mimic what they see, and so they do that, and then that tells on their mental state. As soon as they do that, if I'm talking to somebody and they're talking about some near object like the door, or if I have like a Florida poster up, and that's how I usually do that. I used to do that. I used to put a Florida poster up. If they start looking at the Florida poster and that's their life experience, is like, I come from Florida, then I go, oh man, I think we got something to work through here. But mimicry is fascinating. I did a study once. It was through the Berkeley study of interspecific human mimicry, and that's what we've seen with Darla and Fight Club. They were mimicking the pain of the people so they can get the benefits and resources of the group, the same benefits and that's what mimicry usually is about. When somebody starts mimicking you, they're looking to get the benefits and the resources of the group because they're not intelligent enough to. Impersonation is like that too. Impersonation is sort of it's a creepy little undertone, but what they're doing is they're trying to fulfill some need in their life, sort of like Darla was doing in Fight Club. She was trying to fill some need by mimicking the pain that was going on and mimicking the group. And that was a good example of interspecific human mimicry. Women do this a lot, and I wish men would study that. Women need to gain resources, for one of the things that they do is interspecific human mimicry, and they mimic the male in the sense that okay, it's like oh man, I like baseball, and she'd be like, oh, I love baseball too. And I like, man, I like action movies. I love action movies too. And that's interspecific human mimicry. And before you know it, now this comes in with the disillusionment of pair bonding too. You think that special female is just like you, and there's some magic link, and the pair bonding's there because she likes everything you like. No, she doesn't. You have no idea what she likes and what she dislikes. This is what I found out with my wife at the end of our marriage. At the divorce, in that awful moment where she told me I'm dating other guys and it's none of your business what I do. I had no idea what she liked and disliked because she had mimicked everything about me for so long. She just told me this for the resources. And that's where it starts getting, and that's where Mgtow starts getting interesting. And we start unwrapping the layers of human nature. But you're not allowed to say that. Mimics can be dangerous too. I've seen, that's when when you were in your drug counselor, mimics can be dangerous because they'll start mimicking in life, and then what they really want is to gain resources to do the drugs. And then that was my last. I can't remember what the cat's name is, but he gained my trust in life as his counselor, and he came over for some reason. He says and then he ended up stealing like some stuff from my garage and stealing the license plates off my van, so he can use it on his van, so he can leave this. It's like, and I was like, oh man, that was good one. But he did it through mimicry. He did it through. So we all fall for this when somebody tells you, man, I like baseball and you like baseball too. We're like this, like we're buds. Don't ever believe that. People will mimic you. And this is all sorts of, this is men and women. This doesn't just pertain to women's. Most of the lessons I give in life, it has no gender bias in it. This happens to men and it happens to women. And if you want to make it in the Mgtow community, men will do that too. And producers will start mimicking your stuff. If you've been around here as long as I have, you'll just sit back and snicker and see, oh yeah, they hate me, but they love me and they mimic me. And when they're stuck for a topic, there's no better place than going through Joe's 1,200 videos and look for a topic. Because I think I do keep it fresh at least. But I have this impersonator that's taken it to a way unhealthy level. I have 2 impersonators now. If you haven't figured out who that is, that other Mgtow monk guy, yeah, 2 impersonators. So I'm kind of to put that together. It's like, he mimicked the beard, he mimicked the Mgtow monkness, and he mimicked everything. And it's like, yeah, couldn't be an original about that, huh? Yeah, I had the Mgtow church mimicked. And that was some other guy that was going to start the Mgtow. Well, Joe already does that every Sunday morning. It's like, yeah, but you could do it better if you got more personality and you got more charisma. I don't think it would be hard to find someone more personality and charisma than me. But I got toxic charisma, I suppose. Men mimic also men mimic also for women too. You have to understand that. And that's when we see the simping. You see the estrogen just flowing. This thing, what I say, there's always 2 ends to every bar. And when we start in the middle, we look every situation where you're looking at in social sciences, and this just generally doesn't work out with my ands, ors, and nots, but we're looking at social science. We're trying to get a good idea of how humans work and everything. There's 2 ends of each bar. Pragmaticism, that's why I like pragmaticism. I was looking at Dewey and James and Williams, and who else is the original? Dewey, James, Williams, and I was looking at not Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. He was the Justice. Holmes and Watson. Holmes. He shares the same name as Holmes. It was the Justice he went through the Civil War, and he was talking about this thing that happens with through the eyes of, and it's the Metaphysical Club. I think Mgtow Values. He likes the book, The Metaphysical Club. I like the book, The Metaphysical Club too. It tells about pragmatism, and tells about Holmes and Williams and how these people but one of the things in there is about being eclectic in your life. We noticed that, and it's about being eclectic is learning things from different sources. We found out that most of these people that came from that great Boston movement and that great Northern movement during the Civil War, which then we had this great period of peace from the 60s up to the 1920s, this great period of peace, which a lot of people got to really enjoy living in America in that time. I don't know what you'd call that period of time. It was the great period of peacetime. There is a word for it. It's the great something period of peacetime. I'll just call it that. Or the Great Reconstruction. If you got to live through the Great Reconstruction, that's actually the word for it. If you got to live through the Great Reconstruction, there's peace. And Benjamin Franklin talks about the Reconstruction. Even back in, he says we fight now so our sons can be farmers and their sons can be artists. So we're talking about generational. As long as we don't have wars, and they got to enjoy that through about a 60-year period there. Not 60 years, that would be about 40. Yeah, about a 60-year period. They got to enjoy total peace in this country, which is time enough for a few generations. And then at the end of these generations, we got some great thinkers, some great philosophers, and Dewey and James and Williams and God, if I can remember that guy's name, I'm on a brain fart here. I'm having a brain fart with the other guy, and his name, he was the Justice. He was one of the first justices, ran from 1920 or something. And he talks a lot about being eclectic in your thinking and that stuff. Almost all Germans, Australian cities were built by the Roman Empire. Were they, Ellen? I didn't know that. Yeah, I guess they would. They would. These started by the Roman Empire, and them boys could build. Hey, Italian people in cement. It's like, give them cement and they'll build a castle. It's like them guys are great with cement. But yeah, so I've been getting into the metaphysics club lately, and I have two other books I ordered. I had a headache for the last 2 weeks, and I couldn't really read, or I couldn't listen, and I couldn't read, and I was just having this just mega headache. It was like I told you about. I think Dougie, I caught something from Dougie, because no other humans come in his house. They couldn't have brought anything. Dougie actually had a fungal infection, and I think he gave it to me, and it's like, oh man, my brain feels like mush, so I couldn't read, but I'm back on my I think I've recovered now, and it's like, wow, that's great. Clear thinking is nice. Clear thinking is really nice when you start clear thinking again after a period of downtime. You're like, man, that sucked. I don't ever want to get Alzheimer's. It sucks. You could do that during when you're sick, or you're noticing some off thing with you and everything. But yeah, that's one of the books I'm reading now. If you ever get a chance, you can get it on audio book too. I have it on audiobook and a paperback book too, so I can read along as they talk. And the Metaphysics Club, it's a very interesting. But what you'll see now, that's what I was trying to talk about yesterday, is the Varnakit. Varnakit came up with a religion, and James came up with a religion too, and Williams came up with a religion. Very subtle religions. They all came from that Protestant sort of Reformation thing, but they all came up with this idea of a religion. Now we look at Mgtow and people go, well, you guys are developing your own religion. And that's what happens with philosophies, especially pragmatic philosophies like Mgtow, where we're looking at risk. We're taking in like Boolean logic, and we're using Kantian logic and Descartesian logic and all that stuff. And we're coming up with a philosophy that works for men. And people go, well, you guys are a cult. You guys are a religion. Oh, yeah, because all great. We look at St. Thomas of Aquinas and stuff like that. All great philosophies eventually turn to sort of this religious idea, and you can see that with the Bacchanalism, with Varnakit. Varnakit was talking about Bacchanic. His religion was, he says, and that's why I'll get back to the eclectic ideas. Eclectivism is a great idea. Bacchanalism was total eclecticism. And he says, just kind of go with something someday. Someone shows up, and you just be spontaneous and kind of go with it and kind of see where things lead to. Because in my life, I would do a very in-depth study on great people. And around here we had in Ohio, and during the time of the war, we had the Underground Railroad that came up right through here, and I can trace it. And some of my history, I like to trace these things. I like to go down to Kent and Ravenna and look at John Brown's house and John Brown's father's house and look at where John Brown lived. And then one thing I noticed that is General Grant, which was the president, Ulysses S. Grant, the president of the United States. He worked for John Brown's father, and then and it was like, wow. And then, but Williams knew John Brown too. And you go, oh, well, these people all have these links in their lives. Williams knew Pierce, and Pierce knew John Brown, and they all knew Grant, and up from Ohio to New York to Iowa, these people all know each other. How was it that all these people came together at Harvard during that time? Same values. They're very different people in their lives. Some got to that point. Some of these guys got to that point later, like Williams. He was a drunkard and a young man, and he was like a sailor. He didn't want to do those things. Pierce got there differently, and Oliver Wendell Holmes, the guy, that's what a name I've been struggling with. Oliver Wendell Holmes was the justice, the United States, one of the first United States justices, and he got there, and he has a philosophy, which is pragmaticism, and all these guys developed this philosophy but they all lived in different places. One lived in Boston, one lived in New York, one lived in Ohio, one lived in Delaware, and then and I go to Bacchanalism, and it's like you just kind of go, and they all had these eclectic philosophies. And when he says Wendell Holmes, when he talks about it like it makes him a great justice, because he says, I don't think about politics and I don't think about religion. And he uses his pragmatism. All I do is I think about what's right, what's wrong, and what works. And a lot of his decisions during that time was between labor disputes between the labor and capitalism and the proletariat and the burgess. And he was settling these disputes all the time. And he uses eclecticism. He says, I take little bits and pieces. And you find that a lot of these people are very eclectic thinkers. And Varnakit was a very eclectic thinker. He took little bits and pieces. You ever read Varnakit, Breakfast of Champions? I mean, it's all over the place, and then he comes at a spectacular ending. It's like that's one of the books I'd suggest just for entertainment purposes. But there's meaning in there somewhere. Somewhere in there, you're going to find this meaning, this eclectic thinking, and you have to be very eclectic and very pragmatic at the same time, and take knowledge from different places. But this thing plays out in a bigger scheme in the world where people that are supposed to be together, Jefferson and Washington and all those guys, and people that like Dewey and James and Wendell, it was all, these people were supposed to meet. These people were supposed to do something. There's this eclectic pull in the world that put these people together. And John Brown, how would it be that John Brown's father employed Ulysses S. Grant? It's like there's this pull, this magnetic pull in people. I don't know the way they think and everything, and I believe that, and I believe that that's the way Mgtow is. There's this eclectic pull to Mgtow from a lot of really, I don't know, intelligent, nice guys and good guys that we just all end up in the same place for a reason, because we all think alike. And that's what it's an interesting topic. And I know that has to deal with the metaphysics of life. And a lot of times I'm not a very metaphysical thinker. I'm not very religious. I'm not, I don't believe in love. I don't believe in all that garbage, but I do believe somewhere there's this pulling force that's pulling Mgtow together. And we're waiting for all those neos and all those great minds and all those great men to come together in this thing where we all develop the Mgtow philosophy, like pragmaticism started. And then it starts making sense to me. It gives me purpose in life, why I don't veer from this program, because I think I'm supposed to be here. But with that, we get we get the gaslighting, and we get what I call they want to convert you back into the blue pill. There's this conversion therapy where what you're saying is it rubs on their brain so hard that they can't do the secondary step thinking. They can't see that so a lot of these processes that we've worked out in our brains, this processing of how we process this thing, was always very, very, always very, very rational. It was always very rational, and that's Mgtow. So if you think you just ended up here, nah, there's a bigger force going on. I think there's a bigger force in Mgtow going on, and it'll someday translate to a bigger philosophy or a bigger life, and we all had our special place, and each and every one of us had a little part in that. We played a little part in that, some bigger, some smaller. Whatever your place is, hey, that's what Wendell Holmes said. It was about war too. They didn't understand war. They didn't understand it when they took all these eclectic knowledge that they learned during really bad negative things that happened at the beginning of the war. The Battle of Fairfax and things like that. These horrible things that happen, and that's negative events, and that's what I'm talking about today. Processing negative events, and in the wartime. Oliver Wendell Holmes said there was all these negative events, and until they had to fire McClellan, and because it was horrible, and they didn't know how to fight, and they were doing it old style with new guns. and you know, the line up and shoot at each other, and and in McClellan, they just awfully, when they got pushed over the ledge there at by the river, and then it was just horrible, and a lot of men died, and they had to make decisions, rational decisions. But all these rational decisions came from what we were talking about today, the same thing as Mgtow, all those rational decisions that won the war. And that's where my point was. You see how I went all the way around with that? My point is, you see how I take everything and I bring it back to Mgtow? I'm a genius at that. My thing is, don't ever let somebody shame you guys into like your negative experiences with gender dynamics in this world doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make it shameful. You take your negative experiences and you put all those things together. Now you know how to build a light bulb. You know, all your failures and all that. Now you know how to build a light bulb, and that big bright light bulb in your life is a Mgtow light bulb, and that's shining right now, guys. If you practice Mgtow, that bulb's shining, and you built it. Each and every one of you guys built your own. You guys built your own Mgtow from those negative experiences, and that's processing. That's processing all that information, and you did it rationally, not like that jackass said in the beginning of this thing and in the beginning of this talk that we had today. And I know I went a long way around, but you did it the right way. You did it the Mgtow way, because we Mgtows, we think about these things. We've worked all this stuff out. We did millions of hours of reading, and the collective, the Mgtow collective, we all come together and we realize that we are right, and we are doing it right, just like the Civil War, just like all those pragmaticists that came from that. They're doing it right now because they learned that there is a right and there is a wrong in this world. And that's what Oliver Wendell Holmes would tell you. I don't care about the politics. I don't care about the religion. I don't care about a lot of things. Pragmatically, there is a right and there is a wrong. And male slavery is wrong. Marriage is barbaric and it's wrong. It places men and boys that are untenable. It makes this society untenable. Maybe we're not supposed to live together. Maybe we're supposed to share experiences, like I say with Jill, the sandwich girl up the street. She's lovely. I don't have no problem with her. She makes my sandwich. I give her a tip every day, or every day I go in there. She makes my sandwich, and it's delightful. We have delightful conversation. I'm not going to push that past that. I'm not going to make that into something ugly, because it is what it is. It is what it is. It's just that. Don't ruin those things. And it tells me maybe some of these things do work out, but I'm not going to introduce like this simping and this garbage and this thirst and this. I know about these things now, and I have to introduce them in my logic. I know how bad things work out. I know it's nobody else's business what I do, and hence it's none of my business. It's none of my business what they do. And that works out better for me, and I can be a more collective thinker. I can put these things together and be a real Mgtow. I turn on that Mgtow light bulb, and it shines, man. It shines in my life. And I think that's about all I got to say today. I hope you're all having a great day. I'm probably going to plop my lazy ass down on the couch, see if Dougie wants something to eat, make a few snowballs, and maybe throw it at him onto the neighbor. I haven't thrown a snowball at her yet. And enjoy my life. And that's what it's about. Enjoy my solitude, because I do enjoy solitude. Maybe I'll listen to a book tonight and just sit there on an audio book and just take in the words and logic and the enlightenment of other men before me. We could do that now, because I'm not out at some bar, and I'm not out buying 2 hamburgers when I need 1. I'm not deluding myself that there's something magical or something special about that V. And you know which V I'm talking about. And that works out for us. We know this. We've learned. We've applied pragmaticism. We've been objective about these things. And that's about it. So the other day I talked about objectivism. I talked about the collective. I talked about pragmaticism today. And then I don't know what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Be pragmatic, guys. Don't let these guys bother you, and don't let them turn this into a Mgtow reprogramming where the pressures, and that's what my my detractors, and that's what my impersonator wants. He wants me to recant, say I was wrong. They want me to recant. They want me to think like them. They want me to get back into the collective. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay around. And it's going to irritate the living bejeebers out of them, sends them hate down votes. It's great. Hate down votes before I even start. Because they'll never understand. They'll never get it. They're in the matrix. Why would they get it? They're not practicing any higher thinking. They don't have a philosophy. Their philosophy is the split V. And how low can they bend over? How low can they go for that? Oh, horrible people. They're all horrible people once you start looking at them. And that's all I got to say today. And with that, I hope you're all going to have a great night and have a great weekend. And maybe I'll come back tomorrow and talk a little bit. But with that, I thanks a lot for everybody showing up. I thanks for the support that I do get. I feel grateful to have friends and people that do listen. And I feel grateful that I can share the Mgtow, my Mgtow. I don't care if it's, I do think it's a lot of people's Mgtow and your Mgtow. But there's a reason why we are here, man. Each and every one of you make a difference. And with that, we are going to make a difference in this world. And a new philosophy will blossom someday. Someone will take credit for it. That's what the narcissistic people are for. But I hope you're all having a great day. And most of the time, each and every one of you, like always, thanks for being Mgtow. Mgtow. Guys, have a great weekend.